It's been about a year since Arknights technical test, and at that point in time, I was pretty tempted to make a video, but I was so swamped with university that I didn't have the time to do it, and even if I did, it wasn't going to be a good video. What I mean by that is that the review I was going to give for the technical test wasn't going to be any positive, cause I don't think the technical test was done well at all. In fact, I think the producers themselves know that the reviews that they got from the technical test were not the greatest, and it really needed them to change a lot as to what the final product looks like. You would know for certain that I'm not afraid to tell people if I don't like something. I mean, I did that for Watering Waves, where I said that the launch of the game was honestly pretty poor. Unfortunately, the Watering community didn't take that video very well, and I don't wish to farm any more views on that side and get unnecessary comments, so I decided to take that video down. But now, over here, what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to tell you what were the issues that I had with the technical test and how the beta test, at least the trailer gameplay demo itself, have changed from that technical test. Of course, this might not be fully representative of what it will really look like, but trust me when I say I think the gameplay demo is enough for us to say we've got a damn good game on our hands. Okay, now I get to put all the nasty stuff out about technical tests, so let's get started. Now, the world of this place is one of the first few things you get introduced to, and the world is very dull and lifeless. The whole place is very fogged up, it's very misty, and the reason for that is that the environment of the game is meant to be post-apocalyptic. You just came into this planet, it's trying to be conquered by yourself, and then you are trying to revitalize the place a little bit. So there is that sort of idea that, yes, maybe you might transform this world to become a better version of what it is. It's definitely not what happened in the technical test, but even if you were to do that, that might take a very long time. If you think of this as like a premium game, one of those one-time purchase games on Steam, where this is the story environment that you sit in, I think a post-apocalyptic setting could be a little bit charming. But if you think of this as a gacha game, a game that you need to log in every single day in a year, in a few years, and every single time you log in, you need to be thrown into this depressing environment, I feel like the draw to make players stay in the game is really very weak, and that was one of the major problems of me feeling good about playing the game when the world isn't inviting in the first place. Then, if we look at the combat of the game, we have the whole slowdown system where you basically can click on the person's skill, you plan what you're gonna do, and then afterwards you summon that skill, and then you rotate your characters, they've got their own AI and they shoot all around. Now the combat, because of this whole thinking process where it feels a bit AK-like, if you think of Arknights gameplay where you click on the person's skill, you can slow it down. Yes, for us Arknights players, we've gotten used to that. But when you talk about an RPG game like this, where the combat is all about slowing it down, I feel like that could be a personal tasting where certain players might enjoy that, but for most players outside, and especially casual players, this kind of gameplay isn't that tempting for them. And it makes the game look very slow-paced rather, when action should be something always fast-paced. So that became quite a bit of a turn-off for many people out there, that they're like, if this is going to be the combat of the game, I don't know if I want to stay within it. And then if we look at the story and the characters of the game, they all look very stiff. It doesn't gel very well, and it's this environment where this is many hundred years later of the Arknights world that we know now, and a lot of people find it very strange that you use the Arknights branding and yet you don't have that relation of old AK characters being within the game, or even if they were in the game, how did they even survive 500 years, right? Is it some kind of cryostasis? Is it a thing where they teleported? Like, we don't really know. Angelina was already a strange one where it was more like she's a clone version of her old self. But of course, later as we see in the beta test, we're going to see a lot more of the Arknights characters, which means they did something to change up that story. A lot of people were initially uncomfortable with the idea that a lot of the characters that they know before in AK are dead in the version of Endfield, which makes it feel like you're killing the brand. You might as well have not called it Arknights in the first place. So there definitely were a lot of issues with that game where it's just not enough reasons to stay. Base building could have been one of the reasons. It was one of the main things that people are tempted to see, because it feels like you have the freedom to create your own game. But then there comes the issue of, that's a very niche thing. You know, Arknights as a tower defense game has always been, in a way, niche, right? We don't have all the people in the world wanting to play a tower defense game. And likewise, if you have a game that introduced base building, not everybody in the world wants that. A lot of the time, more people out there just want combat after combat, lots of fighting, give me good exploration. Why do I need to settle with like building my map, building my little factories everywhere and wiring everything together. So that becomes a bit of an issue of how do you tempt people to play a game like that, as much as it seems to be the main focus of their game. So again, I will talk about base building in a separate video. We won't discuss that so much in this one, and you will understand full well why I separated it later, because that one will discuss as to who this game is meant for. But in any case, those were how I felt towards the technical tests. But let's compare that to the now beta test demo. If you look towards the gameplay demo and you see the reactions on Twitter and YouTube, everyone is going crazy over the fact that it looks night and day. It looks like every single thing in the game has changed. You look at the world and you do a side-by-side comparison, you can clearly see there's more color. It's a lot brighter, there's so much more details, and it feels like your phone is going to explode to experience a world like this. But it's not just the world itself, the combat has also changed. They removed the whole slowdown aspect of the game and they decided to introduce the normal pace that you see in a combat. Although there is that specialty of still only controlling one character at a time, and the other 3 characters you have will be trailing behind you and supporting you. So they will have their own passive skills that will run when they're in their auto mode, and for the characters that you control, or even for the characters around, you can actually use their skills at any point in time to switch, and they also have their ultimate. Interestingly, a lot more flair of Arknights is seen within this one, where if you look at the skills, there is the very familiar Mastery tree. There is still the Elite 2 that we recognize in Arknights, but instead of having 2 ranks, they made it 4 ranks and is split in the tiers of 0.5. So you now have Elite 0.5, Elite 1, Elite 1.5 and Elite 2, which is a very funny way to see it, but it's a very unique thing that is just truly Arknights. And of course, the characters looks a lot less stiff. In fact, they have so much expressions within them that it's just crazy to see how much they change. And there's so much more details on the characters as well, in the form of the textures of their clothing, in how much movements they can have, and just how lively they look. Now this looks like a very inviting game, that it feels like a game that I not only want to log in every day, but I could log in every few hours in a day and feel great about being a part of this world. And there's just so many little attractive things, whether in the form of the different parts of the map, and even to come back into your base and see everything is producing in the way that you want it to be. So I think that they've really taken wholeheartedly all the comments and the reviews that were given at the front of the year and taken just this whole year itself to revamp every single thing. If you look into the interview that was done together with Hypergryph, they did state that every single thing needed to be overhauled. From the story, which we don't get to see much in the gameplay demo, we're gonna have to experience that when the beta test comes out. But they did say that the story almost took 100% change, simply because they understand that people were uncomfortable and people didn't like the direction of it. And now they want to present a very different version of what they think is better for the public to experience. And at the same time, they understand that a lot of people want a lot more reasons to play the game. And right now, within that beta test version, I think we can clearly see those reasons. The biggest part that really shocked me is that within the original technical test, there wasn't so many things that screams that this is an Arknight spread. It's maybe just the character arts that makes you think, yes, this kind of style of the characters looks very much AK, and the world that you're in, yeah, it looks like a certain region of AK, and that's about it. There isn't anything else apart from like random lore dumps that wasn't very satisfying. But if you look into the gameplay demo this time, you can clearly see that apart from just the characters themselves, some of the familiar ones coming back, and then if you look at the way that you get to interact with your characters, there's the food buff, which is interesting because we see that in the form of reclamation algorithm, where you can give food to your characters and you can get that sort of attack up, defense up, and all the other buffs. And you can also plant towers while you're attacking the enemies. They now allow you to carry towers together with you as you go on your adventure, and you can plant it somewhere so that you can use that to support in your attacks, which I think is just so interesting. You don't see that all that much in a lot of other games out there, let alone gacha games. Even in normal games themselves, not often you have a gameplay like that. And then at the same time, you also get to see the base in action. I don't just mean building the base and collecting the materials, I mean your main hub that you get to stay in. So they made the hub very similar to Rhodes Island, but I don't think it is called Rhodes Island. This must be a very different spaceship that's out there in the world. And you can see that there's still the factories. They don't have a trading post, but they have like a cultivation room of sorts. Whatever there is, you get to place your units within there, and it's the same thing that you're familiar with. There's still a productivity, there's still the morale, there's still the duration that they work. But the biggest enhancement is how you can interact with your characters while they are working there. You can send them onto rest shifts, you can interact with them and give them gifts if you'd like, and just see how everything operates instead of just being in that sort of chibi environment that you see in just the Arknights base itself. So I think now I can confidently say that this is the Arknights part of this whole Endfield game. And I'm very excited to see how this all turns out within the beta test itself. Let me just say this, the biggest thing that tells me that this is going to be the game of the year is this chair. Alright, we all, Asians, Brazilians, you know this chair. This chair being represented in the game is more than enough to say we've got peak tier representation, and we're gonna get so much more of it in the future. And I know this is going to be a great game. In any case, I will make another video about Endfield right after this one. And just know, I think that's going to be one of the biggest important videos, because I want to tell you guys as to whether this game is a game that you will like. Because understand this, you might not like the game, even with all these changes. But let's understand that and discuss that together in that video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I shall see you in the next few videos. Take care, y'all. Bye-bye.